Hello and welcome to another Fix It Friday. What we're going to deal with today is colour perspective, and it's a really important topic. Have you ever spent a long time on a picture, wondered why whatever you've done it doesn't look quite right? You haven't got that depth in the picture, you haven't really got that, you've got light in the background, you've darkened the foreground, but yet still it doesn't look right. Well, that's simple. That's what we need to deal with. That's colour perspective. Having the right colours in the right places will make a terrific difference, and if you can grasp that, it really will give magic to your pictures. It'll make them totally different. So today we're going to do a simple scene which has got some distance and foreground, and we'll show you how to deliver that. But first we're going to show a mistake. Okay, so we've prepared a sky. Now, I've made this mistake many times. What we're going to do is we're going to put the landscape element in, we're going to put the greens in, and I've been so frustrated with my greens. It's always looked flat, and the problem is I'll mix a good green, I'll apply a green to the distance thinking yeah, that's lovely, put those distant hills in, and then I'm going to come down the page. As I come down the page, I'm going to think yeah, oh yes, it's going to get darker as I come down, so I'm going to make a little bit more blue and the green, make it darker as I come down. Bring it down, thinking I've got the colours, I've got a nice even wash, I'm comfortable with that, it's coming down the page, but the reality is what's happening is the colours are the same, and no matter how much I come down the page and fill that space, I think I've got that lovely green. When I leave it, I come back to it, what happens is it looks flat. Even though now I'm going to actually make it look a bit darker, I'm thinking it's still not looking quite right, so I'm going to make it darker. I'm going to make a deeper green for the foreground, put that bit of deeper green in. The reality is I've done it, but that looks flat and it's frustrating. As you can see, I've got that distance, I brought the paper down, come down into the foreground, I've got a little pool of water, and then I've made it deeper colour. No matter what I've done there, even though with that deeper contrast through the picture, it looks flat. That distance and the foreground look to be on the same plane. Simple mistake, frustrating mistake. I've made it so many times myself, it really is infuriating. But I know I can fix that, and let's fix it together. Okay, so we've had that experience where we've got a flat watercolour. Well, the key for me really is to recognise what the issue is. You see, most beginners, and I was one as well, don't recognise and don't use the use of colour, specifically temperature and saturation. What that means in simple ways is depth and distance. In the distance, the hills look cool and bluish, and in the foreground, they look warmer and richer, and that's colour perspective, and that will make a colossal difference to your pictures. So let's have a go. Let's have a go at this scene now, and let's bring in colour perspective into this. Okay, so we're going to start with the distance. And the distance is cool, and what we're going to use, instead of that green that went right through, we're going to actually recognise that we're going to use some blue. I'm going to use cobalt blue with a touch of light red, and that will give a lovely pale grey. And I'm going to put that in with the distant hills. Bring that across and paint in those hills. I'm going to diffuse them a little bit, but just nonetheless carefully bring those into play. I'm adding a little bit more deeper of that grey just in edges, just in parts, and then diffusing it into the picture. Bringing that down for the distant hills. Okay, so when I mean diffuse, what I'm actually doing is I'm adding a little bit more water to the pigment and letting it flow into the colours and just diffuse slightly. I'm also squeezing off the brush and just lifting off in parts as well, so you get that colour variation from that sharper edge in parts to that very soft, almost clear grey that just comes through the paper, so you get that variation in the distance. But all in all, it's a blue grey, as you can see. Now I've let that dry, or at least settle into the paper, and I'm going to put the foreground. The foreground is that lighter green. It's a different colour. I'm going to use, in this case, it's going to be a more stronger colour, so it's going to be Prussian blue and yellow ochre. And then I'm going to put that green in the foreground and bring that down as a wash into the foreground. We've got a little bit of a pond in the field that I'm going to just leave for white paper like we did before. I'll mix a bit more of that colour. Bring that down. Bring that down, keep flowing it while it's nice and moist, making sure that I've got moisture in the flow of colour. That's lovely. Now I'm going to mix a really strong dark green, which is going to be Prussian blue. In our case, I'm going to use a blue and a brown burnt sienna. Will do for the trick. Make a really strong green. I'm just going to drop this in into the foreground, create that little bit of shadow. Even add a little bit of ultramarine blue into it. It's a blue and a brown essentially for a dark. Drop my tin. A bit more Prussian blue, a bit more ultramarine blue rather. Drop this in. The foreground, giving out a little bit of depth. Add a bit of water. I'm just going to put this in to the sort of little bit of middle area where the trees sit in. Drop that in, let that dry. In the course of this, I'm just tidying it up. If there's any hard edges I want to leave, just lift off. Just shape it a little bit. As simple as that. And already we're getting more colour perspective. You can see that colour range. I'm just going to put a few trees in here and just a little bit of the livestock with some dark, and we'll see what comes of it. Okay, so now we've got it dry, what we're going to do is we're going to put some trees in and that little bit of interest like we had the earlier one. So here we go. What I've got over here is ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I'm going to put some distant trees, just some canopies that we did last week. Broken edges. Bring those down. Put a little bit of darkness at the bottom. Again, the other side. Canopy. Put some trees in. The tree trunks in. Again, it's just ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, making that a little bit darker. Just drop those in. Few in. A bit darker, again a bit darker. Put that in this side. Put a few more shapes on the edge of the water. Reflections in the water, and there we have our simple little landscape. Okay, so there we have our little landscape. It's now drying. I've just put a little bit more extra detail. These are all done with the dark using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, just to give that extra bit of contrast. But now what we can see the benefit of using those greys in the distance for the hills. We've used that lighter green for the bulk of the picture, and then I've put those darks, that darker green into the foreground, and that combination gives that feeling of depth and feeling of harmony to the picture. And then of course I've just put the trees in using a darker mix of basically an ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And when that comes together, I think we've got a landscape. Okay, so there we have it, the finished landscape. What we've done is we just put a little bit of interest with the trees, but fundamentally what we've got that use of colour underneath, which is that distant grey hills transform into a green in the foreground that's got more warmth in the foreground. And then what we've done, we've put in some dark on the top to provide shadow and kept that shadow. Then obviously when we put the trees in and we put that little bit of a shadow in against the pond, it all comes together with a colour landscape that actually has got depth, and it's got that feeling of distance. Okay, so here we are, the beginner effort back again. All I've done is I've gone and put a few trees in, put that little bit of detail and put that bit of shadow in place, and it doesn't matter how well I put the trees in and put the shadow, in comparison it looks flat, purely because we've used that single colour green. We haven't taken into consider the colour change, we haven't used the warmer greens in the foreground, we just used a single green, and as you can see in comparison it looks flat, and it would have been a very frustrating picture. But now we know how to make a difference, so go ahead and have a go. Okay, so there we have it. I'll put a mount around it just to complete the picture. And as we can see, I hope you can understand that key takeaway here is to understand that in the distance you've got that cool blue for the hills, and then in the foreground you've got that warm contrasting green colours, and having that combination, that colour difference, that colour change gives wonderful depth. And then I've obviously just put a few details in, and the details are incidental to some degrees. It's the fundamental underwashes that make all the difference. Remember that, and will really create magical watercolours. Okay, so that concludes another Fix It Friday, and I hope you've enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe, that gets us picked up by a wider audience, and hopefully it gets out to more people. And alongside that, under link below, we've also got our free watercolour guide, which is yours. All you need to do is click on the link and you'll get that, and that's yours to keep forever. And so until next time, all I'm going to say is enjoy and keep painting.